Hello, this is Jenny Clark with Solvability, and today we're doing Florida GovCon Online with Adam Lim, who attended Florida GovCon last year. Last year, Adam was really just a startup. He'd been doing it for a little bit, but he called me the other day and we talked about what he has learned over this past year. And I said, Adam, it would be great to have you at Florida GovCon this year, really to talk about what you've done and what you've learned. So, Adam, take it away.
Thanks, Jenny. Hey, everybody. My name is Adam Lim, and my company's name is Native Instinct, and we're based out of Florida as well. I guess our story is about 2-3 years ago. I got out of the Army, got a big corporate job. I was getting into big corporate America. It was supposed to be the corporate dream, the American dream. And a couple months in, I realized that I didn't want to do that anymore, and I wanted to start my own business. So I started looking around. I had some experience in government contracting my last couple of years in the Army when I was purchasing construction, and I decided, let's go after that. Let's go do federal contracting. So around the time I started my business, which was 2017, spring of 2017, you were running one of the Florida GovCon summits. I think it was in Tampa in 17. And I had just missed it, and I was just starting the company, just getting the LLC and the domain name set up. And I didn't have a chance to go in 17, but I said, all right, in 2018, I'm going to go. So last year, I was able to attend Florida GovCon Summit in Orlando. At that point, in I think it was March of last year, maybe February of 18. At that point, we had only won 3 or 4 of our first contracts, and we were just starting out. And even though Florida GovCon wasn't catered towards the federal contracting startup, I felt like as a startup, I felt like I got a lot of resources there. Met a lot of great people. Actually, the person I'd end up using as our attorney for federal contracting, Ed Kinberg, I met him at Florida GovCon, and I met so many other professionals. And so I wanted to get on today, and talk with you about how valuable that your summit has been and how I plan on going in 2019. I hope to see more startups there too.
Well, I'm excited to know that it was valuable to you, and I do think that being around people that are doing similar things to you, even if you're newer to it, gives a lot of energy and gives you encouragement that you're on the right track. So what are some of the challenges that you've been going through over this last year or so?
Yeah, and just starting out, some of the challenges I think a lot of people run up against is, as with anything with the government, there's a lot of quote unquote bureaucracy when you're just trying to even sign up and get in the right systems to register. So that was about a 4-month period for us, and that includes everything from starting with nothing to being fully active and ready to bid contracts in the federal system. And so just trying to register in all the different systems, including, personally, we had to get certified by the Veterans Affairs Department as a veteran-owned small business. Just trying to get through all of those took some time, but just we stayed at it and we were persistent in getting all those administrative registrations completed. And I think it took 4, maybe 5 months total, which some people said, oh, that's pretty quick, getting all the way through the VA CVE process as well, but that was an obstacle. And recently in the last year, as we've won more contracts, there's just what I would call routine commercial business obstacles that most people run across, including cash flow. You start getting into some bigger contracts, you might have to have a cash outlay that allows you to start executing maybe without getting paid up front. So all these different things we've run across in the last year. But we've been able to overcome most of them.
Well, so Adam, you've also mentioned that you had a lot of success because you had people around you in your support system that were there. What are the biggest lessons of this past year?
Yeah, anytime we've run into an obstacle in a contract or something with a supplier or subcontractor, what I boil everything down to, because I learned at the 8th grade level, as they say, what I boil everything down to is at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings. So, even though my customer is always going to be the end user in the government or the contracting officer, I still at the end of the day know these are people, just like us, that go home, they have families, they have lives they're living. And even though you might be going through something with them that's either very good or very bad on a contract. And I'm not saying I've been through anything very bad. What it boils down to is people are motivated by similar things. So on the converse side of that, our subcontractors and our suppliers, every now and then you'll experience issues with a supplier or a subcontractor. And again, it boils down to the same thing. These aren't robots behind somewhere out there that are just doing business. These are real people. So I think within the past year, I've really learned to boil down to when you're dealing with anyone, you obviously want to outline what that person, what their intent might be, and you're trying to bring value to the table, for your customers and for your suppliers. And so you figure out what their pain point is, and you can almost predict where the conversation is going to go based on that pain point. So boiling down the transactions on both sides to that simple element that you're dealing with people has really been something I think we've learned over the last year.
Well, you've got a really good point with that, Adam, about really understanding what people are, what their issues are, what their problems are. I've noticed that the people that I work with as clients were much more successful if they tell me what's bothering them and what they need help with very specifically, instead of me moving down a standard path, because I've got to solve their priorities and make sure that it's moving along the way that they want. And you've got to be very careful with asking the right questions for that to make that work.
Yeah, that's right. And to that point, a lot of times, as a startup, for anybody coming in off of the street, or maybe have not been in federal contracting, they're going to look at a federal contract, and you've seen even simple ones that were 30 pages long, right, with boilerplate, FAR regulations. And a lot of people in our situation would read that and say, wow, this seems like the hardest customer to work with. And maybe we're being naive about this, but in all the contracts we've won, sure, there's a long list of terms and conditions, and there's a lot of things you have to get done to fulfill your contractual obligations. But at the end of the day, the contracting officer representative, the COR, or the contracting officer, those are people, and there are always negotiations to be made. And so I've really loved that part of it. I get it. The contract says X, Y, and Z. But what if we can offer X, Y, Z, and A, B, and C at either no additional cost or some value add? I always love delving into those and finding what those pain points are with the customer, and then seeing what we can do above and beyond what the black and white text on the contract says.
Oh, those are great ways to approach it. So what are your business plans for this year?
Yeah, so we actually turned 2 years old on paper next month in March, right around the time that I come to Tampa for your summit. And over the last 2 years, we've made a lot of headway with specific suppliers and specific subcontractors. So we've got a GSA Schedule 56 in the works right now. We're almost complete through the application phase, so we're hoping to get on the GSA schedule. And I would basically put some of our business model into three. There's three columns. There's a service column, so we've got service contracts we maintain. There's a distribution column where we represent a few manufacturers and we sell and distribute their goods to the federal government. And then in our third column, we do actually rental and equipment leasing to the U.S. government. So in all three of those columns, we've had both headaches and tremendous time working with the government. And what we're trying to do this year is shave off maybe one of those three columns and focus on two that we feel like have been really worth our time, where we can really be value add. So it's been great because when we started out, we had a pretty wide approach to what we were going after, and now we're starting to whittle that down into what we really want to be operating in. So the exciting thing for this year is we're going to gain a lot more focus. We're going to go only after the contracts we actually absolutely want to go after, and the GSA schedule. Also this year, and again, we're only going to turn 2 years old. I kind of look at this like, who am I to be giving advice? But I've had a lot of people, a lot of peers that maybe they're still working in corporate America, or a lot of peers that I served in the military with, that have said, Adam, how did you start your company? What were some of the concerns? And this year, I kind of want to give back to that community, because I felt like last year at your summit, met a lot of people just like me last year, some people that were a few steps ahead of me. And I want to get the conversation going around that community, around the startup community. And I want to get that community together and talking and helping each other out. So for 2019, I'd really like to get, start laying the foundation for that community.
Well, I'm really glad to hear what you're saying. I think as far as your business plan, once you filled your plate with the amount of revenue that you could handle, you went back through it, evaluated, and said, okay, now we've only got so much room for growth. We're probably going to have to pull back on one of them so we can make more headway, more revenue, more return per hour worked in maybe those other two pillars. And I've always heard that that's the way to go. As you get to a certain point, you really focus on the customers that bring you more, because you can't serve everybody. And I know that that's been something that I've really been challenged by this year. And I'm so excited about this year's Florida GovCon Summit because it's helped me to understand who I can serve well and who I can serve, but not as well as I would be able to if I team them up with somebody. And that startup is the perfect area. I love startups. I'd love to be able to spend more time nurturing that. And what you and I've talked together is about having you at Florida GovCon Summit to really bring those companies, those individuals along. And I particularly am interested in working with veteran-owned small businesses because there's a different language, there's a different battle rhythm, there's a different discipline to it. And I found it very, very easy and rewarding to work with federal contractors who are veteran-owned. So GovCon Startup, what should we do with that? How can we make something happen, Adam?
I think to start out, I kind of envision a place where people maybe that were in my shoes 18 months ago, maybe they've already got an LLC registered, or maybe they're not even there yet. Maybe they're just assessing the market. People with questions like I used to have in my 6 months, and I can remember I had some questions that I laugh at now. I laugh at my own concerns from back then. But I want to start a community where it's safe and it's okay to ask those questions, where you're not in a room with, some of the leading federal contracting firms, from around the country. So you can kind of ask these questions without, severely embarrassing maybe yourself. So I started a LinkedIn community called the GovCon Startup, but I also recommend for any of your listeners or followers to just go to Florida GovCon as well. There's a good LinkedIn group already thriving and going there. Maybe I can share the link with you, but let's just create a space where people are talking about this. And I mean, I don't post on LinkedIn a whole lot, Jenny, but I did the other day, and it was amazing the amount of feedback I got from people that are saying, hey, I'm working for this corporation XYZ, and I've been thinking about going into federal contracting. Maybe they saw the Hollywood movie, or maybe they have experience in that field, but they just don't know how to start up. That's kind of what I want to start in the LinkedIn community. So I'll share the link with you, and maybe we can go from there.
I really like that idea. And when we had that call the other day, I left with so much energy because I like collaborating with people that have the kind of energy that you do. And I see us creating some way that maybe once a month we have a startup call that we do together, because whatever we can do to make it possible for people to realize what they want to do in federal contracting, it's a great area to be in because it creates jobs and security for the owners of the company, and most of the veterans that start these businesses also hire veterans. It becomes the growth engine, and really that's part of the reason for me creating Florida GovCon Community, just recognizing how much potential is here, but knowing also that we've got to have really the momentum, the tipping point of a community of federal contractors that are willing to kind of hold each other's hand through these processes and help people move along. And when I talk to people about what we're going to do at Florida GovCon Summit, it's like, hey, I'm going to have the mall. It'll have specialty stores. But the main thing is we want entrepreneurs like you to meet others so that there's ways to get answers to their questions, surrounded by the business community, like you mentioned, Ed Kinberg and others that are very happy to share their expertise, knowing that you're going to be successful and the rising tide lifts all ships. So I love your ideas, Adam, and I see us doing something big with this coming out of Florida GovCon. So thanks so much for joining us today and for stepping up. And I'll be following up about your session at Florida GovCon. I think that'd be a great way to really kick off this whole idea about it at Florida GovCon. We got the room, and that's March 27th and 28th in Tampa. If you need information on it, it's at govconconference.com. You can also connect with me or Adam on LinkedIn. Just type in our names and you'll find us. But we're real excited about working together to really move this whole community forward. Anything else you want to add, Adam? How should they contact you?
No, we pretty much covered it. Like I said, there's a lot of unique questions starting out, and let's start the conversation so that maybe people can launch their businesses quicker than normal because they're getting the answers they need.
That would be great. Well, thanks so much, Adam.
All right, thank you.